All right, hello. Welcome back to the Monarchists of America podcast. Today we have a good discussion for you. Today we are going to be talking about the Nepal and the monarchist protests that have happened, which seems to be a rising thing in many countries. We're also going to talk about the Lichtenstein senior royal who has passed away. May God rest his soul. And we're going to do a special one for you and talk about constitutional reforms in America. Basically, what Monarchists of America plans to do when we actually get into political positions. Isn't that right, William?
That is correct, Thomas. And
Yes,
thank you
yes,
for
and
shouting me out.
yes, we have a lot of reforms that we want to talk about.
Yes,
American government.
and there's much to go over, so let's start without a further ado so we're not up all night, because I'm pretty sure many of us have things we have to do tomorrow, don't we?
Oh,
Church
yeah.
to go to,
I'm
Christmas
going to
shopping finish.
I'm going to the shooting range tomorrow, so that'll be
Oh, that
fun.
sounds lovely.
Base.
Yeah.
But
I'm
anyways,
hoping an
so
indoor one, given the weather, but then again, I don't know what state you live in. You might live in a warmer state,
The
right?
state of Arkansas, my friend.
Oh, so you actually probably have somewhat decent weather still.
you mean
Yeah.
Arkansas. You mean Arkansas.
No, it's
Let's
Arkansas.
not
Announcement.
argue with the grammar.
Anyways, William, I
Maybe
only recently heard about this monarchist protest in Nepal. What can you tell us about it?
So, for those of you who don't know the background, the
Mhm.
monarchy of Nepal was abolished in the early 2000s after
Yeah.
one of the princes went postal and massacred almost all of the royal family. This was during a turbulent period in Nepal's history where it was also dealing with a Maoist insurgency. As a
Yeah.
result of this tragedy and the insurgency, a backdoor deal was made, a treaty, that resulted in Nepal becoming a republic. And now, the former leader of said Maoist insurgency is the head of government of the nation of Nepal. This is causing widespread protests and calls for a return of the constitutional monarchy and an end to the Maoist government.
So it is a communist government, correct?
Yeah.
I don't know exactly whether or not to call it a true communist government. It's the thing about the Maoist government, by what I call it, is it's not Maoist in our traditional understanding and traditional sense, and the reason that is because of course, a variety of cultural reasons, but also, strangely enough, there seems to be a historical record of the Chinese Communist Party also disliking this party.
Yeah.
And even assisting in the counterinsurgency, because the belief of China is that Nepal, neither being communist nor Indian nationalist, makes them a nice buffer state that prevents tensions from building up with India. So I don't know exactly enough about the party ideology to be able to say whether or not they are like true hardline communists or market socialists or whatever the hell
Whatever they
China
are.
does today.
China's complicated.
Yeah, the only thing that we know really about Nepal is their funny flag design.
I like their flag.
I do too, but
As someone from the proud state of Ohio, we need more unconventional flag shapes.
Okay, that is a weird flag design.
Okay, now that's something else.
Ohio is a beautiful state once you get past the toxic waste, okay?
Hey, that toxic waste is just used to be American pride before they left us bankrupt and impoverished.
I know.
Yeah.
But
hopefully,
it's interesting how we're getting, if I may, it's interesting how this goes into something I mentioned a long time ago on another podcast. I believe it was Lower Your Expectations. We're seeing a rise of radical neo-traditionalism in a way. I've coined that term for a bit, and I've used it quite a bit on my podcast, the Theocrat.
Yeah.
We're seeing like people slowly going back to more traditional ways, traditional styles in new ways. Atheists are becoming pagan and witches. Catholics are becoming like sedevacantist or traditional landmass. Let me see. Right wingers are becoming fascist and monarchists. Left wingers are becoming communists and anarchists. It's quite interesting.
I think mainly what's happening and why we're seeing this is because we're beginning to see a breakdown in the liberal order of things, in the liberal status quo.
Yeah.
And as a result, as we leave that liberal status quo, there are only so many ways we can go, and that's either more hardline left wing or more hardline right wing.
Right.
And the
Yeah,
reason that we're seeing
it,
so much unhealthy extremism around it is because
it
the
is because
liberal
of human
establishment,
behavior. It's
right,
because of human behavior
and it's
over a
also because
span
the
of
liberal establishment has suppressed some of these ideologies into what are fundamentally caricatures, negative caricatures, in order to try and prevent opposition.
Right.
yeah,
That as a result, the
right,
people who are adopting these oppositions are adopting the most negative versions or negative traits of these ideologies.
yeah,
Right. Like, for
yeah,
example, I've met a few Catholics online trying to recruit for monarchy, and I've come across a few people who identify as Catholic fascists. They call themselves monarchists in idealism, but pragmatism-wise, they are Catholic fascists, which is an oxymoron. The Catholic Church doesn't support
yeah,
fascism.
And to those people who want to
yeah,
have a hybrid fascism and monarchist order, I would like to direct you all to a video made by a friend of ours, Levater. He goes over it and explains that it's basically impossible because that would require the fascist party to, one, share power with the monarch, and two,
yeah,
have to understand that they can't have society fully submitted to their state if the monarch exists.
The thing is,
yeah.
fascism is completely incompatible with monarchy because they're two completely separate things. Like, republicanism and monarchy aren't just one thing, they're two overarching terms for
The
many
way,
different forms
yeah.
of government.
Now you
The way
can,
I've always described republicanism and monarchy is it's not two different ideologies. They're like operating systems on a computer.
Yeah.
You're picking two base softwares.
Like, in republics, you have, for example, constitutional, you have federalism, or you can have fascism and communism as authoritarian. It goes all over the branches. In monarchy, you have this too. You have constitutional monarchy, ceremonial monarchy, semi-constitutional monarchy, and absolute monarchy, like Jacques Rousseau and Thomas Hobbes argued for. But even then, it's just we're seeing this rise of extremism, especially now that we see it in Nepal, which I hope they haven't put down yet. But hopefully, we can be seeing a rise in monarchy. I
I
just
mean,
struggle. I
I'm
just
not.
struggle to see if revolution is the way to go because monarchy is very anti-revolutionary.
If I'm looking at
yeah,
Nepal,
yeah,
I see nothing but good things from Nepal. The protesters are being civil, they're being polite, they're being
yeah. They're
peaceful.
being peaceful,
If
peaceful.
they violently put
Now,
down the revolution, it's only going to reflect badly.
Yeah.
yeah. So from what I'm seeing, this could be a very peaceful revolution.
Well,
If
and
you know,
then again, what defines revolution? Because revolution means tearing down and building up again. I personally
but
prefer reformation, and I know all my
Well,
Catholic fans are going to hate me saying that. I don't support Protestant Reformation, obviously. That was a revolution, in my opinion. But that's off topic. That's completely off
yeah,
topic. Sorry, William.
right.
it's fine, it's fine, it's
And
fine. At
Basically,
least we don't have to deal with all the Sedficante stuff.
oh, thank
If you
God.
yeah,
disagree with
Anyways,
your church, you just go and make your own church. That's basically the status quo.
yes, but
And
basically,
yeah,
the
while it
thing,
causes like 3,000 different denominations and a bunch of schisms, it really cuts out most of the drama.
it really does,
yeah.
doesn't it? But the thing is,
We're
what I was
getting
going to
off
say was,
topic here. We
Yeah,
with
were
revolution,
no, we're fine. Go ahead, continue.
anyways, with revolution, it's always about tearing down. So society is like a house, and traditions and laws are the bricks of the house. If you have a bad brick and you can fix it, you take it out, you
yeah,
refurbish it, then you put it back in. If you have a terrible brick that absolutely cannot be fixed, you take it out, throw it away, then put in a new one. But you don't tear down the entire house because of a few bad bricks. That's why I think America shouldn't have a revolution because it'll ultimately get violent knowing the state of America. We should have a reformation. We should slowly get our name out there and plant a seed that ultimately grows into a tree which produces the fruits of monarchy.
Exactly, which is the
exactly.
primary goal of our movement because violence only begets violence, and if we try to violently overthrow the nation, it'll
Now,
only
now,
leave a precedent that'll
now,
cause harm.
now. I get what you're saying here, but I think we can do a revolution peacefully
That's the
through
thing.
peace.
There's no such thing as a peaceful revolution.
There
Now,
can,
I could
There's
say, I mean, I think what he means by peaceful is a bloodless revolution where
Yeah, I really
Yeah.
don't believe that. I'm sorry, I really don't. Because if you look at quote unquote bloodless revolutions in the past, like for example, the quote unquote glorious revolution that took out the James Stewart II, they're fighting. Well, it didn't happen in England. They called it bloodless and glorious for years because they're like, oh, we were so peaceful. We just asked him to leave and he did. Their fighting mostly took place in Ireland and Scotland, and they massacred many of them. I just don't. Revolution always has a hint of blood in it. Because revolution means fighting for what you believe. Reformation means working with what you believe and what others believe. And even then, is revolution inherently a good thing? Like you don't want to tear down the whole revolution means again starting from the bottom or tearing down from the top, then starting from the bottom again. This is an ultimately dangerous idea because once you throw away the house, you throw away the good bricks with the bad bricks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I can still say that it can be done peacefully.
That's where I'm
I
gonna
would hope so too. At
if
least
it can be
we
done
should try
peacefully,
to make it peaceful
if
as possible.
if it can be done peacefully, great. I will happily support it, but right now that's just not the case for me. That's why I'm working on writing a book that defends monarchy and then publishing it.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
will admit, I do, as someone who is genuinely cynical, I do appreciate your cynicism, Thomas.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
and while we were talking about the fall of the liberal order, I've been reading a book about, us. So it's essentially like a cycle, right? For the past 81 years since the end of World War II up till now. It so we had like a rise and like a fall, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of, society as it is. Like after World War II, you had people who trusted the government, people weren't at each other's throats, this and that. The economy was great, this and that. And then the fall or the crisis, which,
Well, yeah.
is what we're living today.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So,
I would say the crisis started after World War II. There was a brief period of peace, but in America, at least, we had it great because we didn't have any
yeah,
fighting on the land. But in Europe, their buildings, their food, everything was tarnished and toppled.
yeah,
And even in
but
America, we see. I personally brain like people often want to find a set date for when everything got bad. I'm guilty of this too. I personally blame the Enlightenment, but I don't think even with my ideas and your ideas, I don't think we can set an exact date for when humanity
I think,
became what it is.
Right, because
Um,
also from the Enlightenment, we can see a golden age of monarchism in the form of enlightened
yeah,
despotism and
yeah, the
absolutism.
alignment helped, you know,
the
make monarchy as is a good thing because if you
well,
remember
I
before
wrote
World War One,
I wrote in our old paper.
because monarchies in Europe. Okay,
I wrote in
because
my old paper about how the Enlightenment was responsible for the crap we have today. I may write that again
not
for our
not
other newspaper.
not entirely because the Enlightenment helped create the state of Germany,
Yeah,
and
exactly. It's
it helped reform a lot of monarchies in Europe. It gave freedom to people and
well,
help
what that gets in the definition of what is freedom, but we don't have time for that.
we
But
don't have
anyway,
time
let's
for
move on to let's see what time is it. Let's move on to our next topic, which is
yeah,
going to be a sad topic, which is the death of one of the senior royals of Liechtenstein. Will, can you tell us his name?
sadly, God bless
I
him.
I actually don't have his name off the top of my head. Does anyone have the article?
Uh, I
Oh,
I
this
don't
is
know.
on. I'm looking up. Um,
What was his name?
I'm Constantine. That's it. So
What's his name?
Prince Constantine of Liechtenstein died suddenly at age 51.
So
51. That's
young by
young. Yeah,
I
that's
relative
know.
young.
modern
Yeah.
standards. Do they have a cause of death yet? They said he died suddenly, but they never said for what for. I'm
Let's
assuming by
figure-
died suddenly it means he didn't have any pre-existing conditions.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out.
If it's super
Reading,
sudden, that's
I'm reading the article. The prince, wife, and children have not yet commented on the sudden passing. God bless their souls.
Yeah.
Um, Constantine was seventh in line to the Lichtensteiner throne when he passed, behind his brothers, hereditary Prince Alois and Prince Maximilian.
How is
Right.
he seventh if he's the third brother?
That's a good question. Hereditary is confusing.
Right, because it varies depending on. Well, I guess if the brothers have kids, it would go to their kids first. Never mind. Stupid
He was the
question.
senior
Right.
royal married former marketing executor. I cannot say her name, but God bless her too. Prince Constantine was chairman of the supervisory board of Liechtenstein Group AG and member of board of directors of Liechtenstein Group Holding AG. I'm trying to find the death. I don't think it says. Like, I don't think we actually know what his death was. Like,
Well, well, could have been heart attack, could have been stroke, could have been aneurysm. The point is, it's a tragedy nonetheless. And
yes,
normally I save prayers for the end, but I feel like we should offer up a prayer while we're here.
yes, in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses,
As
as we
we
forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Heavenly Father, we pray for the royal family of Liechtenstein and their deceased prince. Take his soul into your kingdom, Lord, so he may be granted eternal rest, and grant comfort and closure upon the family and those he left behind on this earth. Ease their pain and suffering, and help them to become whole after they've lost someone so close. Bless the Principality of Liechtenstein. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
When he said the Our Father, I started praying in Latin by accident.
I cannot speak a word of Latin other than Julius Caesar quotes.
No, I can speak five, maybe possibly 5 to 6 prayers in Latin.
I'm the only foreign language I really dabble in is German. Well, of course, not counting the random words of Spanish everyone in America picks up.
Did not white women at Mexican restaurants be like gracias.
Me at Mexican restaurant. I wonder how to make this.
I have the greatest Mexican restaurant in my town. It's called El Campesinos, and it is to die for.
One of my favorite restaurants at home is a Mexican restaurant, and I have so many good memories there. But it's hard to think about it. Like, it's not the equivalent of, like, say, the Queen dying, Queen Elizabeth II, but this is like heartbreaking for a lot of monarchists. Even though he wasn't probably going to become king, it's so sad when a single royal dies. You often feel like the world should stop.
Little Lichtenstein is a dear place in all of our hearts because it's one of the few places in the world where we see a proper semi-constitutional system, and in Europe of all places. So
yeah, and it's like you often feel like when you're close to someone who dies, you often feel like the world should be stopping at that moment. Like it should stop for as long as you need it to, yet it doesn't. My teacher once brought this up, my professor. Like, when a family member dies, it's like, why isn't the world just stopping for a minute? I don't want to keep going. I want life to stop and let me breathe for a moment. But then we go back to work the next day and it's like nothing ever happened.
I don't know. Granted, I haven't ever lost someone super, super close to me, but when someone dies, I tend to have more feeling of pain as of empathy rather than personal feeling of pain. Like when I see people close to me sad because someone died, that will make me sad, but the death itself, like I don't know why. I just have a hard time
Yeah,
feeling.
same. No, same. I haven't had people too close to me. I've had one friend, God rest his soul. But it's interesting. Like, we have this quote in the Latin Church and in ancient Rome, "Memento mori," which means literally remember to die, but in our form it means remember your death. We constantly, as Christians, we are preparing for our death because we know this world is not our home. The world is our ship, not our home, and it's
And of course,
Yeah.
preparing for death also means being prepared to meet your maker and face your consequences of the things you've done in life.
Kind of like
Yeah.
it doesn't hit you until like someone close to you dies. It really doesn't. Like we often think as youngins, old youngins, that we're immortal, like and that nothing bad's gonna happen to us. Like that's a mindset a lot of us have.
Yeah. But
I mean,
you get old really quick.
I try not to dwell on my personal existential dread. That was something I dealt with a lot when I was younger.
Yeah.
But now that, and I say this like I'm older, I'm 23, but now that
Yeah.
I am where
You,
I am,
you,
I've sort of just kind of accepted the state where it'll happen when it'll happen, and the only thing I have to do is make sure
and,
that
and
I am the best person I can possibly be
Right.
when that happens and when I face my maker.
Yes.
yeah.
And when you turn
And,
Catholic,
and
you'll eventually be better.
or
Mess
Orthodox.
with you.
Orthodox.
I'm just
And
messing with y'all.
while I am not Catholic, I do somewhat believe in the concept of purgatory. At least I somewhat hope there is a
Yeah.
purgatory because
C.S. Lewis even argued
Are
for.
already in purgatory, which is
Yeah,
alright.
but I will say this kind of seems this a Methodist, an Orthodox, and a Catholic all walk into a podcast center. This is like the start of a bad joke.
yeah, it's like the Methodists
The
are weird theologically. While most of our rhetoric is in line with Protestants, we have a heavy service and work ethic around
Yeah.
serving the community. Which
Yeah.
yeah.
so basically our whole thing with faith and works is that when it comes to works being required, it's that whole technically no but actually yes sort of
Oh,
thing.
yeah. Well, to
Where
be fair,
while it's not where it's kind of like the Assumption of Mary in the Orthodox Church, where it's not dogma, but everyone believes it every way. The requirement of good works along with faith is not dogma in the Methodist Church, but everyone practices it
yeah. Well, to
anyway.
be fair, y'all can't proclaim a dogma because y'all don't have councils.
Right, you know, but you get what I'm saying.
I know. I'm just messing with you, Will. Don't worry.
I know. I can't think of how else to word it besides dogma.
No, I get it. No. Well, that's how the church always saw it. So
But yeah. So that's how it works in Methodism. So we're a very community service oriented church,
yeah.
and
From what I understand, Methodism focuses a lot on social justice. Not in like the bad way.
right. In like the original Christian way, yes.
Yeah, but now some of it's getting a little
Radical.
Right. Well,
It-
I don't think any part of Christendom is safe from that because it seems that the ideological factors of our world are slowly
And
trying to
and it looks like
seep
most of
into the church.
these infiltrations are coming from the Protestant churches. Now, I'm
Right,
not
but
saying the the Catholic churches are not facing the same thing, but it's
but
mostly the infiltrations in.
I disagree. We have some churches that are, like, for example, if you look at Cardinal Chupich and Cardinal McElroy, they've actually talked about changing church teachings at the synod, which, if they actually knew what the synod is, they know it wouldn't be done there. But we also, the thing with Catholics is that we believe that our church cannot err. We believe that no council or no ex cathedra statement will ever contradict. And we have that security. I don't know about any other churches.
I mean, personally, I know Methodists don't believe that because fundamentally the church on earth is still ran by men, and so saying that the church was infallible would be saying the men who runs it is the men who run it is infallible.
I know we're getting into a theological talk, but that's not exactly true. We do so, like when Peter and the apostles wrote the Bible, they had infallibility on them because the Bible was preserved without error. And
And this is a problem that
at the first
Orthodox and the Catholic
councils,
And
churches
yeah, this is where we start
have
getting into the issues and the disputes around
about
papal authority and everything. And
because you guys say that the Pope is infallible.
it's
Well,
complicated.
we think
We
that
believe we believe the Pope is infallible only in certain circumstances, ex cathedra, where basically he teaches from the chair as the full authority of Saint Peter, which is what popes have done in the past centuries. even when Pope Agathos wrote a letter to the Eastern bishops and Western bishops, they read this at the council. I think the second or third or fourth council of Constantinople, or the second council of Constance. Y'all can correct me on this. It said that the See of Rome was the only church and will always be the only church that has never erred. And this was after Pope Honorius. Pope Honorius was never condemned to be a heretic. He was only condemned for not helping to stop the spread of heresy.
Now, if I may, you said they're meeting at the synod, or however it's pronounced. I can never seem to pronounce it. But what exactly is a synod?
A synod it's more, I will call it a mini pastoral council. It doesn't deal with dogmas. It doesn't deal with religious teaching. It deals with like how we're going to spread the faith, how we are going to help people come closer to God, etc. The thing is, people often are mistaking it as a council, but it's not. It's basically like a mini, like it's mini councils that deal with governance of the church and how we're going to evangelize the faith. It has no authority to change teaching.
It's like a committee meeting, basically.
Yes, a huge committee meeting.
I see.
I'm still trying to debate whether the Dead Sea Scrolls are actually, church,
So
relatable.
The Dead Sea Scrolls are interesting. They actually prove a lot of what we thought about Jesus being the Messiah.
Yeah.
Now, if I remember correctly, most of the Dead Sea Scrolls were technically written before the birth of Christ, correct?
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
But it's funny.
And some of those scrolls even mention during creation, stuff that weren't in Genesis.
Right. I'm gonna be honest here. I'm glad I'm getting a theology degree because I know how to talk about this stuff. I never thought I'd be using it right now, but that's good.
While we're talking about theology and Dead Sea Scrolls and various books, I forgot to tell y'all I got me a Christmas present for myself, and I picked up a copy of the Apocrypha.
Apocrypha?
However it's pronounced. I don't know.
It's all right. It's all right. I actually have 2 books with me that I'm planning on reading and actually writing a paper on. Actually, I may write a news article on this later on once I finish. So these are 2 monarchist books that are very different but come to the same conclusion. One is Jacques Bousseau's Politics Drawn from Holy Scripture, and the other is Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan, which both come to the conclusion that we need an absolute unquestioned monarchy, but one goes from it from a scriptural Christian point of view, and one goes from an atheist natural point of view.
No, I can argue with you because it's not going to be very possible for that, but there can be a possibility of a Christian monarch, but there's no way that a monarch can have complete control over everything.
I know. I disagree with them. I disagree, but as a monarch, someone who wants to study monarchy for a living, I'm going to have to read them eventually.
Now, while I have yet to actually read Hobbes, and I really want to read Hobbes because I do somewhat appreciate the work he is trying to do and trying to accomplish, because in making a secular argument for monarchy, he helps to rationalize everything with religious context. And that's good for us as we live in a secular society, and we're going to need secular arguments in order to justify our cause in the 21st century.
No, definitely. But then again, there's so many different ways you could... Well, I guess Thomas Hobbes does good at that, but my problem is he says that people ultimately use their rights to give up their rights, if you know what I mean. I'm still going to read it. I still got to read it because the one I got, Penguin Classics, is extremely hard to read. So I recommend getting an easier version. I'm going to be reading Spark Notes along with it.
Oh yeah, have you read that, what was that book called? Star Spangled Crown?
I haven't yet.
The one by
Charles Cologne.
Charles Cologne. Wonderful guy, by the way. We actually had an episode with him for a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
Maybe we could bring him back for a re-episode.
Perhaps.
That could be interesting.
He has been traveling a lot, so it will be a bit difficult.
Yeah.
But anyways, I say we move on to our next conversation, which is ultimately one that many people are going to ask us once we actually get into government, which is constitutional reforms in America, especially monarchy
Yes.
in
Yes.
America.
So
I
I think
think
we could, first of all, I
so.
think we could skip the obvious
I
one that
you
America becoming a monarchy, because, yeah.
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 Oh, can I please speak? So we
Yeah.
can all agree that a constitutional where the monarch is a figurehead won't work entirely. Neither would an absolute monarchy.
Definitely.
So I think it's possible a semi-constitutional monarchy will work.
Well, so it's actually weird with terms. If you want to say constitutional monarchy, that usually means ceremonial monarchy, while semi-constitutional monarchy usually means um constitutional monarchy. Yeah. But
Yeah,
basically, the idea is we're gonna have to change a lot of the amendments.
yeah, like the term limits
Oh,
for the executive branch.
well, that's disappointing.
Now,
What happened?
I poured myself some wine, and there are pieces of cork in my wine.
Oof, I'm sorry.
no, I'm
Drinking
sorry.
wine while discussing monarchy. Wow, you're so prestigious.
Yeah, you're so
Not
prestigious.
really. It's
So
a
big.
$14 bottle of wine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
So basically,
so
the tr-
so I'm
so
thinking maybe for like the executive branch we could replace, the position of president as the monarch.
Right.
yeah,
Now we can debate whether we should call our monarch the king or the emperor, but
that
for this episode, we're just gonna say the monarch
yeah. So there's one
because
I
amendment.
still,
There's
I
one
still
amendment.
personally, I still
Yeah,
personally prefer emperor, given the fact that we are a federation, and therefore, theoretically, those if there are monarchs at the state level, they would be princes.
yeah. No, definitely. I prefer emperor, but it really doesn't matter to me. But there is a thing that we're gonna have to work on. It's the election of president and vice president with the 12th
I don't,
Amendment.
and that's what brings up my next thing. I'm thinking maybe we could replace the vice president with chancellor or something.
I
Right.
personally,
And what a
So the vice, the vice chan, you know, the
my
chancellor could.
idea, my idea was to merge vice president with secretary of state and make the office a
yeah.
chancellor.
I
Yeah,
And
personally,
so they would be both
yeah,
the head of the Senate and the cabinet,
I
basically.
personally think we should merge maybe Speaker of the House and Vice President, because Speaker of the House runs the internal affairs of the government.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah,
Perhaps, but I would still like the vice president to remain with the executive branch.
oh
Oh,
yeah,
and while we're on the topic
personally,
of vice president and leading the
Yeah,
Senate,
it'd probably be called something else because vice president.
right, right,
right?
yeah, probably like chancellor or high minister,
That's what
something
I
of that
just said.
nature.
That's what I just said. Chancellor.
I
I'm sorry.
know, I know, I hear you, man, I hear you. Oh, why we mentioned the Senate, or why I mentioned the Senate, another thing,
Yeah.
and this has been
Another
put
thing
in
about
stone.
the right. So let me tell you my reforms. So I believe that the Senate needs major reforms. Like one, we need to make sure that we can cut back on corruption, but there will still be some corruption. But
Well,
right
there's
now,
always going to be
the
corruption.
Senate, the Senate has like major corruption problems right now.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
know the big thing.
So I'm thinking maybe we should start looking about banning some lobbying in
Well, I'm pretty sure we can all agree that we should repeal Citizens United and end PACs.
Yeah. Could
yeah
you define what that is for some of our people who don't know?
Okay, so a PAC is a public action committee. So the federal government puts a limit to how much you can contribute to someone's election as an individual. The way
Uh,
around it is then you can form an organization, a non-for-profit, and use that to lobby money into movements, causes, and individual candidates in
yeah
order to basically push your issues. These are called public action committees.
well, wait. If we're
Or
getting
PACs.
rid of PAC, what would we do to try and get our position into government?
Well, unfortunately, that probably means that we would either have to form a political party or a pack ourselves, or perhaps even both.
Yeah, I personally think PACs aren't a bad thing. They're just easily corruptible, and that we should make laws placing that limits PACs.
Yeah. And also, we gotta make sure that, and I think this has been an issue that's on the thing. We should make sure that, Senate is barred from, acting on the interests of the stock market not entirely, but to a certain degree where they're not entirely influenced by it.
One thing I will say is Emperor Napoleon once said that if the country, I'm going to sum it up real quick. If the country or the king is in debt to bankers, then the king is not the head of the country, the bankers are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But another thing about the Senate, and this is something MOA has discussed extensively in regards to the Senate and reforms, is we should repeal the 17th Amendment. The power to appoint senators should be returned to the state and not the popular election, because the idea of the Senate was originally to represent state governments as equals amongst each other.
Right.
And I'm also thinking maybe we should introduce term limits for that too.
What if we replace senators with like a nobility? Like that's one thing we all debate about is having nobility.
But then we got to go through the process of establishing a nobility and an aristocracy, and that's an egg in itself to crack in the U.S.
Yeah, but think about this. Think about this. The Senate kind of is its own nobility. Like the House of Representatives is mostly like it kind of works like there's the House of Lords and the House of Commons in Britain. We could have something like that. Also, nobility.
But what I'm wanting to bring is that we could mix some of the American system with an idea of having a monarchy. I'm saying we should leave some of it in it.
Oh yeah,
and I believe the people should have the right to, decide on who can represent them.
I guess that goes into my cynicism and my more theocratic tendencies. I personally think, as of right now, the people should pick from a multiple pool of people who want to be senator, and then the king should decide what the senator should be.
Yeah. And we're not gonna, destroy the Bill of Rights on this issue.
Oh yeah, no. I personally, I wouldn't mind having
That's what a lot of people have been asking me is, wouldn't a king just abolish the Bill of Rights? No. They would be barred from doing that.
Personally, I think, if I may, I think the king. Wait, what was I going to say? Crud. I think personally that the king should pick the senators out of a multiple pool of people who want them. But I also think with the nobility thing, because we're going to have to debate nobility. That's going to come up. We can't just hide it. I think it should be a sort of meritocratic nobility that gets inherited by the children.
Yeah, I think China might have had a right idea with their nobility, where titles and such are granted by merit, and then the idea of a noble house is more of an informal concept.
Yeah.
Like the house itself has social recognition, but there isn't a heritable title that comes with the house rather than the reputation the house precedes it.
I think there should be. I think the titles. Let's say, for example, we have a great charitable businessman who's like a billionaire, and he's giving the charity and actively promoting the government, promoting monarchy. Then I think if he works hard enough, he gets a noble title and it's passed on to his children. He'll be called Lord or Sir. I will say nobility is tied to land, so they might have to be landowners, but that's a whole nother debate.
Then again, with the U.S., that's not necessarily a problem because most Americans do, in fact, own some land.
But still, I still believe there should be some elections for the people.
Of course, there should be some elections, especially as we go lower in the federal ranking. Like, Obviously, we're not trying to reestablish the entirety of feudalism. We're not trying to replace mayors with burghers or counts or anything
Personally,
like that.
I think I'm personally kind of a neo-feudalist. I could try writing a thing on that one day, but that's not the point.
Me,
Right.
my views are changing more towards like a classical kind of liberal, the idea of freedom and having the feeling that you're being represented. And,
Well, yeah, the feeling of it is good, but
and that's what brings me up to the next topic about maybe we should reform, the electoral college so third parties can come in.
That's a good one.
But, I mean, well, if we abolish the republic and install an empire, a monarch, then the electoral college basically disappears.
I think maybe we should integrate some of the republic into this new monarchy.
Right. I'm just saying that if we create a
just like Rome did, when Augustus took over.
I don't disagree, but what I'm saying is if we establish a monarchy, then the electoral college becomes irrelevant anyway because we're no longer holding.
Yeah, that is true. We could have, however,
but
I do believe this is what I'm writing in my other book, called The Ideal World, and this is the idea of where there's going to be a monarch, yet the people are going to pick senators to elect a chancellor. It will basically be an electoral college, but for someone who is under the king, a chancellor.
Yeah, and the monarch would choose the chancellor between the parties.
Yes, absolutely.
Now,
like if your party has this amount of seats in Congress, then the party will send their that to the king or the emperor, whoever it will be.
Now, I have another opinion moving away from the Senate and into the House of Representatives, that I am not for this whole frozen number of House of Representatives, and I think that there should be one representative for every 500,000 American citizens. We need more representatives in the House.
Yeah, I agree. I personally support that.
Yes.
There's one more.
So,
here's
I don't know
another.
if anyone has a census in front of them, but how many people live in the U.S.?
Here's another thing I want to abolish is right to vote at 18. I think we should say that for older because if we have to, we have to pay taxes at 18. We basically get the problems of being an 18-year-old, but we don't get the exact benefits of it. Like, no, wait, what's the age?
Yeah.
Like, for example, we have to fight in our country, yet we can't drink, we can't smoke, etc. I believe we should save all that for a specific age, 21. Or
20.
You see, I'm of the opposite opinion where I don't think we should raise voting age. I just think we should lower drinking take
a look at Europe, for example. Europe.
To be fair, men, if we look at men and women become mentally, what's the word? Their brain stops developing at the age of like 19 or 20, while men stop developing at 25. So if we were to do that, sure. But the thing is, 18-year-olds are stupid. I'm sorry, I was one. I know. Like,
you were what? How old are you?
I'm 19.
Oh, you're not. You're only 18. No,
I wasn't. I was an 18-year-old, and it was terrible. We made dumb decisions, and we don't have the brain capacity to do much.
Yeah, I'm definitely not for lowering the voting age anymore for that reason. But I feel like, if you're old enough to get drafted and die for your country, you're old enough to vote for your representative.
I agree.
Like if we have to, if we raise voting age, then we have to raise the draft too, because that's only fair. Because the only reason they lowered the voting age was because of the draft in Vietnam, and they thought it was unfair that kids who were old enough to get drafted in the war could not vote on the representatives that were deciding the war in the first place.
Just raise it all up. That's my opinion.
And while we're talking about the armed forces, I think maybe we should do what the French did: create the Foreign Legion.
I mean, I have mixed feelings, but I don't think there should be a separate foreign legion. But I like the idea of what I call the American auxiliaries. The idea of giving
I think like the American Foreign Legion should be like a detachment from the Marines.
I don't think it should be its own branch as much as if it is, it should be under the army. And I think what it should be is like
I think it should be with the Marines because the Foreign Legion should be like another thing where they're like going, to the front lines first.
I mean, I'm just saying, I don't think we should have a separate foreign legion that is separate from any other branch of the military. I think it should be under the army, and I think it should be taken. Basically, the term should be you spend 4 years in active duty, and you don't have to wait 8 to apply to be a citizen.
I personally think that the FBI should be changed into a royal guard, and we should dress them up like the Swiss Guard.
I honestly, and this goes into 3-letter organizations in general, we really need to sit down and assess the usefulness of some of these organizations and either abolish some of them that are redundant or merge them.
Yeah,
I'm thinking maybe we could merge the FBI and the CIA to become one.
The CIA is more foreign, FBI is more domestic. What I do think we could possibly do is merge the FBI with the DHS.
True.
And I think the ATF should be abolished because everything the ATF does, another organization can do. Like alcohol and tobacco is already heavily regulated by the IRS and revenuers, and frankly, a non-elected organization has no business making rules and regulations around guns. That's the duty of the legislator, not the ATF.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so that one needs to go.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, crud. Sorry. Hit my mic by accident. Oh, that was bad.
No, you didn't die at all. We heard you the entire time.
Now, I'm also thinking maybe we should keep the Supreme Court, too.
Absolutely. The judicial branch, in my opinion, is the most crucial part of this because what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to keep the judicial branch because that's going to be the main bulwark that's going to keep any Republican opposition from just kicking in the door and abolishing the monarchy because then they have to go through constitutional court.
Right. Yeah. We are doing, actually.
Yeah. But I do think there should be some changes that have to do with the Supreme Court. Like one of the changes I thought was in order to increase court capacity, we should either add more justices. Like I had this idea of there being 3 Supreme Court panels and like they're each having an equal number of justices, and then all the justices only meet together for like really big constitutional cases. But like for every now and then cases, like say we have 9 judges now, correct? We have 9.
I think so.
I believe so.
All right, so instead of having all 9 justices presiding over one case, it would break down into 3 sets of 3, and then they could theoretically preside over 3 cases at once.
Yeah,
I'm thinking there could be like different layers of like the Supreme Court. Like there's a group of judges that do like those kinds of cases, and then there's a kind of judge.
Yeah, like different justices specialize in certain kind. I like that idea. I really. Yeah. But I feel like we need to streamline the course a lot because a lot of cases, like the Supreme Court sits on back order for months upon end. And
there's one thing I will say. There's one thing I will say. I think this might be a flaw in our little idea here. But I do support this nonetheless. I think the only flaw is, let's say there's a religious court case. For example, like the gay weddings or forcing Catholic like there's one that was brought up, like forcing Catholic priests to bless gay weddings. This has been whispered under, but or like having women priests and like should women be barred from priesthood, or like all of these things. Can a baker not make a gay wedding cake for two men? The thing
I
is,
think
who's going to
I
deal with
think
that?
some
Should we?
I think
I
I
don't
think
want.
some religious
Gentlemen,
matters should be
gentlemen,
kept out of the
one at a
court.
time, one at a time. Thomas, finish what you're saying.
So I think ultimately the problem is if we do this, there's going to be religious court cases. Like even the Church of Satan is trying to become an official religion and have abortion enshrined into them because they claim it's a religious ritual. This is real. You can look it up. Well, the Satanic Temple, but same thing. Basically, the thing is, who is going to deal? Who is going to?
Now,
The court,
the
I
more
think,
I hear about the crap the Satanic Temple is trying to do, the more I realize maybe all those people talking about smashing balls and stuff have a point.
Yeah, I
And the
know.
more I
The thing
want
is,
to do it.
The thing is, if we have these religious problems, who's going to deal with it? Because I personally, as a religious man, don't want a bunch of secular lawyers dealing with my church and saying, oh, what's going to be best for quote unquote equality when in reality equality doesn't exist.
I think we need to break down and say that we need to rule that the Church of Satan is not a religion, but a satirization that exists solely to mock the Abrahamic faiths, including and all the Abrahamic faiths, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. They're here to mock us all, and that therefore they aren't a real religion. They exist because their entire existence is predicated basically in opposition to us.
Yeah. But like, let's say, for example, there was one I heard. People haven't been bringing this up, but it's under whispers that I've heard at least that because church weddings count as legal weddings in America, they should force the Catholic Church to give gay weddings. Like, how would we deal with this? Who would deal with it is the question. I personally think
Well,
we should have it should be up to the private bishops and
then
like every
what we
church.
need to do is we need to finish the separation in church and state in that matter and separate the civic aspect of marriage from the religious aspect of marriage.
Right? As
Like we've
that
talked about this before, that all marriages should be civil unions, but not all civil unions should be considered marriage, and that marriage should be a religious institution, but one that is parallel to a civic
right.
union.
As much as I do believe in theocracy, that seems like a good compromise for now.
for
Right,
now.
right. I mean, because basically what it comes down to at that point is a semantic. What qualifies as marriage and what doesn't. And
Right.
we could say that what qualifies as marriage is a
Yeah.
religious matter
Yeah,
rather
of
than a
course.
secular one.
Some people argue, oh, it's the same thing though, so why are you changing it? I disagree that semantics don't matter. Like, I'm not saying you're saying that, Will, but I think a lot of people will often be like, oh, semantics don't matter. Just keep it the same name. Like, it really doesn't matter. No one's going to think differently. That's not true. Semantics do matter. We're a linguistic creatures, and ultimately
Right,
changing a
right.
word will
Yeah.
ultimately change the ideal.
Well, people who say semantics don't matter get really, really angry once the semantics works against them. So
No, people who don't like
Yeah,
semantics
yeah.
get angry when you start semanting their pronouns. I know. Sorry, I had to be a little funny here.
Listen, the whole fucking pronoun argument is just completely fold on the left. Because no one's gonna say your correct pronouns immediately.
Yeah, as someone who's personally dealt with that, like,
Because
tell anymore.
because when someone sees you as a woman, they're gonna say you're a she or this and that. They're not gonna say this or that, whatever the hell they're calling
That
it.
makes me wonder who the heck is going to deal with like the Constitution on gender because like it's a relatively
well,
new thing.
hopefully, and dare I say it, and I say this knowing I have more progressive sympathies, I pray to God that this neo-pronoun BS ends up just being a fad. And
I think
as someone with autism, I completely reject this stupid idea that this stuff is supposed to be more convenient and better for autistic
yeah.
people because The idea of invisible arbitrary pronouns and genders that aren't determined by biological characteristics just seems like a social nightmare to me. Like, am I going to risk being ostracized because I can't perceive something that is invisible and arbitrary?
Right. To be fair, just to be a little funny, Will, when you said like this goes against my progressive tendencies, I whispered under my breath, "Yeah, because you're a Methodist." That's just a joke.
I mean, if I really want to talk about my ideology, I consider myself, and I use this word often, Christian labor. I consider myself Christian labor.
I think we can all agree that a man is he, him, and a woman. There's no changing that.
Anyways, I know I always leave early, and I hate doing this. And we are almost done anyway. So basically, I have to go.
You know what? Let's see. Do we have any Let's get ready to wrap this up real quick. Do we have any final thoughts? Do we have anything else we want to talk about real quick? 'Cause I feel like...
What else has been going on this week?
Nothing really.
Nothing particular, other than
the poll and
other
that
than Advent marches on. We had the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. For those of our Jewish followers, we had Hanukkah start.
Yes, Hanukkah, yes, my Jewish friends. Happy Hanukkah, I guess.
Happy Feast of the Immaculate Conception.
What? What? What did you say, Thomas?
Oh, happy Feast of the Immaculate Conception.
Oh, yeah. Right, because, and that's one of the funny things about the term happy holidays. Like, if you become trad enough, it does become holidays because there are more than one day during the season when we're supposed to celebrate.
Yeah. Right. But then again, I'll just say Merry Christmas because I believe Christ is king above all. I don't I've had people get mad at me for not saying happy holidays. I got scared. I'm not scared anymore. I'm going to say Merry Christmas.
I want to wish you a Merry Christmas.
No, if someone comes up to me and says actually it's happy holidays and they walk away, and I'm going to say, and God bless you too.
Right.
Okay, wait, while we're here, real quick final question before we close. What's everyone's favorite Christmas carol?
Oh, Jingle Bells. Jingle Bells.
I love the Latin Veni Veni Emmanuel, which is O Come Emmanuel, but in Latin. But yeah.
I'm a real sucker for Good King Wenceslas.
Anyways, I think that's all we have time for tonight. Thank you all for listening in. We hope you have a great night and a Merry Christmas, even though it's not Christmas yet, but we'll make more episodes. Anyways, William, have a good night. Frederick, have a good night.
And
good night. And wait, do you want to stay long enough to join us for closing prayer? Or?
Yes, I can do that.
All right, I'll let you lead.
All right, in nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, amen. Personally, I will pray in Latin for anyone who knows, if that's okay, William.
Right.
Oh yes, that's fine. I could if you're doing the Lord's Prayer, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah. Okay. This is the Our Father. Pater noster qui es in celis, sanctificetur nomen tuum. Adveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua, sicut in cielo et in terra. Panem nostrum quotidianum da nobis hodie, et dimitti nobis debita nostra, sicut et nos remittimus debitoribus nostris, et ne nos inducas in tentationem, sed libera nos a malo. Amen. For thine is the kingdom and power and glory forever. Amen. Nomine Patris et Filii et Sancti. Amen.
Thank you all for listening in.
And also like and subscribe.
Yeah. Check out the links in the description below if you want to follow us on social media and or learn more about our organization. We appreciate all the support you give us. God bless you and God bless the United States of America.
Amen. Good night.